Good afternoon and welcome to the first site tour for the York Archaeological Trust excavations on Tower 2 of the York City Walls. It's a beautiful day. It's been miserable for most of the week, so we've got the best weather for the site tour, which is fantastic. We're currently standing on the last stretch of York City Wall to be replaced in stone, replacing an earlier timber structure. This was built from about the 1320s by masons from York Minster, who had to abandon what they were doing there and come over here to finish this bit of the wall to guard against possible Scots invasion. We're actually at the site. Behind you is the other Norman castle of York, the one that people tend to forget about at Bale Hill. This is the motte. This is all that survives of it. But there was a castle either side of the river controlling passage up and down the Ouse. And the fortifications here were beefed up at the same time as this piece of the wall was built. What I'm going to do now is walk along the city wall to Tower 2, and then we'll pick up the story from there. We're about to enter a construction site. This amazing scaffold platform you can see behind you has been built over the tower while the City of York Council, as part of their duty to look after these walls, repair the Tower 2 fabric, which has started to move and is in need of some remedial attention. So, given that it's a building site, we just need to make sure we've got the correct PPE, and then we'll see if anyone's in. Excellent. So, my colleague George Loftman, who is the site manager, will follow you in, George. So we're a little bit tight for space in here, as you can see, but welcome to the interior of Tower 2. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask our camera person to swing around a little bit so you can actually see into the tower. But to start with, the walkway that I've been treading along, that you've seen us walking on here, is entirely a Victorian creation, 19th century creation, and it seems increasingly likely that quite a lot of the upper part of the city walls are also a 19th century restoration. The difference can be seen quite clearly as we swing the camera around now to look inside the tower. So I don't know how much you can see, but there is a lower course of stonework that projects further in the way than the bit that you normally see. And this is, we think, the original medieval inner face of the tower wall and its original foundation. Then quite a clear breakpoint at the top, where it looks as if the Victorians rebuilt the top of the parapet when they put the walkway in. Excavations have just started. You can see the beginnings of a trench down at the bottom. These are to investigate the foundation of the medieval wall and to try and find out if any remnants of the earlier timber defensive structure might survive beneath the foundations of the stone one from the early 14th century. We haven't seen it yet, but it's early days. One interesting discovery we have made, and I'm not sure how clear this will be on the video, but where the wall carries on from the tower, where that yellow coat is, under the ladder, there is quite a substantial chunk of mortared rubble. That is looking increasingly like it might be the original 14th century city wall core. And what they did in the 19th century was to take the skin off it, rebuild the tower, and then reface it, and leave that rubble in there. So as we investigate this further, we're hoping to be able to find the actual junction of the medieval inner tower face and the medieval city wall. That's the working theory at the moment, but this being archaeology, the next week or so may completely disprove that. And what we will do is come back next Friday and see what George and the team have managed to find. So until then, watch this space. So we've managed to climb down into the tower itself now, which you can see behind me. And if I ask the cameraman to swing the image so you can see the wall there, firstly you'll notice the very different colour between the top part and the lower part. That's mainly due to the fact that the top part's been exposed to the elements for a very long time, and the lower parts were until quite recently covered in soil, so they're damper. But there is also a clear break point between those two, which matches up with the top of the 19th century walkway, and is adding to the feeling that that is essentially a 19th century restoration. Underneath that, you've got this course of stonework here, and you can see the slightly alarming cracks that are opening up in it, and indeed in the 19th century works at the top. Now, the City of York structural engineer has certified that it's safe, but that is the reason why these works need to take place. The problem has been that the weight of the rubble and earth that the Victorians backfilled this hole with has been pushing that wall out the way ever since. And so by relieving that pressure and then reinforcing the foundation, the idea is to prevent that movement from getting any worse. And in the meantime, we've got a fantastic opportunity to investigate the archaeology both of the structure itself, but also hopefully of what might be underneath it. The soil that you're looking at in the trench is the top of the earthen embankment that the city walls are on top of. And as we excavate down through the construction layers related to the building of the footing itself, what we may come down on is some evidence of the earlier defensive network built into the top of the rampart. We don't know if it will be there or not, but it's one of the research questions we'd like to answer. And finally, if it's possible maybe to look over this side, you can see where the jumble of rubble sits underneath the walkway where those two buckets are. It's in those deposits that we're hopeful somewhere there might be the remaining wall core from the original medieval wall. It's a possibility, but as we investigate and clean and record, hopefully that will become clearer. So when we next come back in here, this trench will be a lot further down, and hopefully we'll have some artefacts that we can show you, and George and his team will be able to tell us more about the archaeology of Tower 2.